Welcome to our Bikini Ready Blueprint. We are going to be covering 3 different topics today. I know there's a whole slew of other topics that we can cover, but that would be a very long call. So today we're going to cover fitness, we're going to cover nutrition, we're also going to cover mindset to help you feel better prepared in getting ready for the stage. So with that being said, all of our people here today are coaches here with Top Notch Strong. We have certified personal trainers, fitness nutrition specialists, and a certified board health and wellness coach / makeup artist. So we have a lot of people who are very knowledgeable on these subjects and can help you better in getting ready for the stage. So without further ado, I'll let Stephanie go ahead and cover training.
Yeah, sure. So basically, when you start training for a competition, or if you're just getting started, the base you want to cover is probably 1 to 2 years to get a good muscle base going. Because when you cut down, you want some good muscle under there, right? Or a good figure going, depending on what division you're in. Well, obviously all divisions, but you want a good figure there, a good muscle foundation. So a couple of years recommended if you're seasoned, if you've been weight training for quite a while and you're ready to peel down, then that's great. But it's going to depend on each and everyone's physique at the moment. And make sure you want to start eating enough food to build as well. So
yeah, so definitely take more time to build than cut. It actually does take a lot longer to build for a lot of women compared to cutting, because building muscle takes time, believe it or not. You're not going to get bulky. You're not going to, look like a man. But it does take a while to build a good solid foundation before cutting to reveal what you have built. And so we can't emphasize that enough as coaches that, regardless of what division you decide to go with or one that you have your eyes set on, it's really important to build that solid foundation first. So, consulting with a coach is really going to help with that, to see what division is best for you at this time, or, how long it's going to take you to get to the division that you really want to compete in. Even if you start out in bikini, which is what most people start out with, and your heart's set on like figure, you can do figure in the future if you want to do bikini now, or you can take all the time now to work towards figure. It's kind of up to you on that. But definitely talk with someone that's going to help with that. And then of course, cutting, when we're talking about cutting, it's basically you're in the depths of your prep and you're cutting the body fat around what you have built so that you can reveal that definition and everything else. For people, that's going to vary depending on how much fluff you have, how lean you need to get, and how your body's responding to your plan. So some people, they cut very slow. I'm one of those. Like, it takes me forever, it feels like, to see what I have built, because my body likes to hold on to everything. But typically you're looking at 16 weeks plus for a heavy cutting period. And that's usually when your cardio is also going to get increased in that time, depending on, of course, how your body's responding. Which brings me to the next point, is like different types of cardio. Cardio, you don't have to do the same type of cardio that everyone else is doing. Of course, talk to your coach, but cardio can be anything. You could be, if you like to swim, you could swim. If you like walking outdoors and hiking, you could do that. That's fine. Cardio is cardio. So you don't have to per se like count your steps or do specific types of cardio. There are lists or HIIT or whatever, but I would recommend that you find something that you do enjoy, so that cardio is not as miserable as it gets increased, because I'm not one who likes cardio, and I'm sure you probably don't either.
And I just want to piggyback off of some things that Stephanie and Sarah both said. And my place is a place of just mindset. A lot of times when we start something new, even if you've competed before, you're in that new season, you have that fire underneath you because you've discovered your why, and you feel really pumped and motivated. Now, Sarah said, we're going to start tapering down about 16 weeks out. Not to be confused with the weeks prior where you were building. So if you're someone who needs to build, you can't expect to be stage ready in 12 to 16 weeks. And if you're someone who is athletic, you may have muscle. However, you may be imbalanced when it comes to your total look. You know, if someone was a softball player, they're going to be lower body dominant, but they may not have built out the upper body yet. You know, if they're squatting down, if they're a hitter versus someone who, you know, sits there and squats a lot, or someone that hits a lot, you're just going to have these dominant areas, right? Give your body time. The more kind you are in the length of time that you go into prepping and building, and then going into your deficit and trimming down, the kinder you will be to your mindset and your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Can you basically just say, you know, no matter what, 12 to 16 weeks, I'm doing this regardless, I'm just going to step on stage? Absolutely. Absolutely. However, the harsher the cut going on that stage, the harder the rebound will be coming out. And that's physically, mentally, and emotionally. One of the things I suggest to everybody is the minute that you decide you want to step on stage, you should also be thinking about what life will be like after you get off that stage. Because there is an after. There is the day after. And if you were, you know, manipulating calories super, super low, and then the next day you don't have a goal or any direction, odds are it's going to be no holds bar. And we have people that come to the page frequently and they say, you know, I rebounded so hard. I put on 8 to 10 pounds over the course of several days. And it's like, you know, their body's holding on to inflammation. There was probably lack of sleep going into there. Stress. They were depleting water in probably dangerous ways.
Come back, Holly.
Sorry. She has disconnected. She'll come back here shortly. Okay. But as she was saying, you know, there's going to be an after when it comes to competing, of course. So it's important to think about that ahead of time, because a lot of the times we don't. We're just, we're blinders on, right? We have our blinders on, ready for the stage. That's all we care about. But when it comes to after your show, if you don't have a plan, regardless if you want to compete again or not, it's going to be jarring. And a lot of the times people just kind of fall off. They kind of take in, just kind of let themselves go in a sense after all that work that they put in, because they're like, I stepped on stage. That's what I want to do. And then afterwards they're like, you know, I want to relax. I want to enjoy everything. And then, you know, weeks go on, a month goes by, and then you're like, oh, shoot, I have gained a lot and I don't look the same, which after you step off stage, you're not going to look the same. You're not going to be able to stay at that lean physique all year round. That's not healthy. So it is important to gain some back, but rebounding very quickly and gaining a bunch back really quickly can be hard and stressful. So it's important to do it in a more manageable way, to reverse diet, which is what we'll get into here next, is your nutrition, which is a very big, important part of everything. So, of course, when it comes to nutrition, fueling your body properly is going to be very key. I like to always tell clients who are very new to competing, hey, Holly, now we can hear you.
I don't know what happened, but I'm back.
It's okay. I picked up and I helped to finish that session. But I just went ahead and started talking about nutrition here. So basically, you know, it's important to fuel your body properly. Any new client that I talk to who is, or, you know, possible client that I'm talking to that is just getting into like tracking their food and stuff and trying to eat healthier, I always say to try and eat on the eat the foods on the perimeter of the store if you will. So if you're just getting started, you know, your fruits and veggies are on the outside perimeter of your store, your meats, your proteins, all of that. You know, the more processed foods you eat are going to be in the aisles. So when it comes to a lot of things, you know, we're trying to eat the minimal amount of processed food if possible. It's okay if you do, of course, but of course, minimal. So we want to eat as much whole foods as we can. Your proteins, lean proteins, complex carbs, and healthy fats. When it comes to it, and your calories are really going to just depend on what phase of your training you're in. Are you trying to build or are you trying to cut? So are you trying to recomposition, or maybe you're reverse dieting after a show? So that's going to really depend on where your calories are at. That's why you should probably talk to someone if you're looking to do whatever phase you need to in order to step on stage. Of course, if you're building, you're going to be in a slight caloric surplus. If you're cutting, then you're going to be in a caloric deficit. So it really just depends on where you're at in your journey when it comes to your nutrition. And then Stephanie, I'll have you cover supplements if you'd like.
Sure. So, like, you know, I don't typically recommend supplements. I don't hardly take supplements myself, even competing. That's not to say that you can't take them. So I just prefer to eat instead of drink half of my meals, or, you know, supplement with extra vitamins and stuff like that. I try to just eat very healthy and get my nutrition from my meals. So, but if you are somebody that like really despises eating vegetables, well then I suggest drink a greens, so you're getting nutrition, so you're getting those extra vitamins and nutrients that you need, you know. Protein shakes, you can take protein shakes, but like I said, I hardly ever drink them unless I'm in a pinch because I love to eat. So, and when you're on minimal calories, then you eat all you can. So that being said, always talk with your coach about it, because there might be other supplements out there that you see other people taking and you think, oh, I'm going to add that into my routine. And then it could conflict with something else that you're taking over the counter or prescribed, and you never know. So always touch base with your coach first. Your coach at any time should say, sure, just, you know, if it's something crazy, just consult with your physician first, so they can, you know, tell you if it's going to conflict with any other medications that you're on and stuff like that. So supplements, sure, go ahead and do it. You know, certain ones, be sure that you consult a physician and your coach both first. But other than that, you don't necessarily need them to succeed. So that's my take on supplements.
That's well said.
Yeah.
Well said. I was going to piggyback off that just because, you know, as Stephanie said, definitely always. And I will say this sincerely, regardless of what a coach tells you, if it is something you have never considered taking before, it's something you have not been on before, you know, someone can't look at you and say you have a B12 deficiency. Somebody can't look at you and say you're deficient in magnesium. You will have friends, you will have cousins, you will have relatives, aunties, and grandmas. However, the only person who can determine that while knowing your health history is your physician. And if you talk to your physician and say, hey, is it possible that I'm deficient in a hormone? Is it possible I'm deficient in a vitamin or a mineral? They're going to say, let's get some blood work done. And like Stephanie said, there are some over the counter, and I know it's so tempting because over the counter, right? It's easy peasy. Everybody has access to it. However, some over the counter vitamin supplements or just plain old fashioned vitamins, whether they come in pill form, liquid, powder, do not mix well with certain medications. So when in doubt, you can talk to your pharmacist, but I would also follow up with your physician. If you are questioning hormones or anything like that, talk to your physician, because when we start manipulating certain hormones or certain vitamins and we don't know what we look like as far as our blood work as a baseline, you can either A, do permanent damage to your organs in your body. B, you can do permanent damage to your hormones in general, just your whole whole endocrine system just thrown off. C, you could potentially lose your life. And I say that because it has happened. We've seen amazing athletes, over the course of years, for as long as bodybuilding has existed, unfortunately not make it to another competition or not make it back home because they've had heart attacks at 20, 30, 40, 50 years old because their body systems were thrown off, or because their kidneys shut down, or because they did liver damage. There is real damage to be done. So always consult with a medical professional when you're deciding that you want to try to manipulate things in your body that can only be validated or tested through blood work.
Yeah, and that's a really great point. It's not to scare anyone either, but there are a lot of people who, like I've mentioned earlier, that we have our blinders on and all we care about is stepping on stage, that we kind of throw all that other stuff out the window, right? We're not concerned about our health quite as much. We do things that we're just like, oh, this is going to help me to win, essentially. And really, it could put you at harm when you're doing these things. So us as coaches, we are always striving to make sure that you're doing this in the healthiest way possible, for your mental health, for your physical health, for your entire well-being. So we would never recommend you to do anything that's going to harm that. So that also includes, manipulating your sodium levels when it comes to competing, manipulating water and all of that. Those are very old ways of doing bodybuilding, and they have very serious consequences on top of supplements that you can or cannot take. So it's not to scare anyone, but we want you to be aware of it, because if someone is suggesting you to do these things, probably a red flag, probably something to steer clear of, because it's not the healthiest in terms of your physical and entire well-being. So I'm glad that you touched on that because I've had conversations with clients too that are like, oh, can I take this or can I take that? And I'm like, well, have you had blood work done? Have you had this done? Have you talked to your physician? Like, when's the last time you had a checkup? So it is very important to really consider that whenever you are competing. Supplements are great. They are there to supplement what you're not getting. But we won't know what you're not getting if you don't do the proper blood work or talk to your physician. Us as coaches, we can make recommendations, but we can't tell you, hey, take this. That is never something that we can do. So with that being said, I think the only other thing we have to cover is a little bit more of mindset. So I'll let Holly kind of take the floor here.
Yes. So one more thing to what we just wrapped up, because a thought popped in my head. Should you be an athlete and you do want to use performance enhancing drugs? I say if that's something you wish to do, again, your physician is there to be there for you. Have an open conversation with your physician about what you're contemplating doing. Have an open conversation with your, loved ones about what you're planning on doing. But most definitely, let your physician know, this is what I'm planning on doing. Depending on where you are, like there are some people that absolutely need hormone manipulation, right? They have, Graves' disease, they have, thyroid issues and things like that. But if you're someone who does not have an issue with estrogen or testosterone, talk to your physician. That way, should something happen, they are informed, and hopefully you two can work out a plan together. So I will say that, just because I don't want anyone to feel like, well, we didn't address it, or, we weren't willing to talk about it. We talk about it in our group a lot. It's been mentioned. It's a great place to have a conversation, right? Like uncomfortable conversations, because bodybuilding is a lot about wrapping your mind about being absolutely comfortable with the most uncomfortable things ever. So, I encourage people to talk about it with their loved ones. I encourage people to talk about it with, your physician. No one should try to ever pressure you into doing something you don't want to do. However, we're all adults. And if there is something you do want to do, or you do want to try, again, open up that line of communication with your coach And most definitely, above all else, open up that line of communication with your physician. Now, when we come to mindfulness, and I just said being uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, the hardest part of competition prep is not nutrition. It's not even going to the gym. The hardest part of competing is this right here. This is the thing that you will struggle with most. It will tell you you're too tired. There's too many events going on. It's the holidays. You had a fight at work. You're not getting along with your significant other. Your kids are driving you crazy, and you just can't today. You just can't with your nutrition and or your routine or whatever. And this is where I say you're going to have to knuckle down, because there will always be something. There will always be something. There will be a family emergency, because it happens, right? It's like going to college and like you're trying to get a degree in something that you have to take like state boards for. And you just know, like if you've ever been in nursing school, shit just hits the fan the minute you enroll. If you're going to school to be a PA, somehow your personal life just freaking falls apart. And like, you know, you get every reason underneath the sun, and they're valid reasons to quit. However, if this is something you truly want, the stage will always be there. So if there's some travesty that has befallen you and your loved ones, push that date back. There is nothing wrong. There is no shame. I don't care if you brag to every person you know that you were competing November 7th of this year. There is no shame in pushing back that date to give yourself time to bring your best package yet to the stage. There's nobody saying you have to do that date other than you. The next thing is that you're going to learn real quick that you have to plan ahead. And that becomes a mindfulness component, because you're going to have to learn to be okay with overpacking your food wherever you go. If a friend says we're going to take a trip real quick, lies, all lies. You know, they usually sucker you into some 6-hour adventure. You're going to be hangry, and you're going to grab the first thing available. And then you're going to feel like you messed up. And then it'll take you another week to get back on track. Take your food with you. There's no shame in rolling up to someone's wedding with a container of food. There's no shame in walking up to your family's Thanksgiving dinner with your own container of food. And not everybody is going to understand your journey, and neither should they have to, because you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. So I usually suggest, you know, if someone says, you know, it's just a piece of cake, or it's just, you know, a drink, or it's just whatever, and you can just say, I have set a goal for myself, and that just doesn't align with my goals right now. Thank you. Don't say you're on a diet, because that word means something different to everybody. So odds are you say diet and they think you're living off lettuce and water. And we know that's not going to help us build muscle at all. So they don't understand. It doesn't align with my goals, and move on. If you mess up, and there'll be times you will, take it as a learning opportunity, so that next time you know how to mitigate what happened last time. You'll find that the same patterns and routines tend to show up over and over and over again. Should you have trouble sticking to a routine, or even developing a routine, this is where the line of communication with your coach is so important, because your coach is only seeing what you write online or through an app or a FaceTime call. And if every Friday you and your coach check in and you're like, the world is butterflies and rainbows and unicorns and I'm killing it, and the reality is that your ass hasn't gotten up in 6 days and you've been eating takeout every night, at some point you're going to feel so pissed and frustrated. And it's going to come out of blue for your coach, because they're gonna be like, what just happened? Like, she's been telling me for weeks everything's been great, because you haven't been upfront and honest with them. They're not there to judge you. You're paying them to help guide and support you through this process. And the best way for them to do what they can do for you is for you to just be honest and open. Life isn't always pretty. It isn't always perfect. Marriages fall apart. Relationships break up. People lose their jobs. You know, something happens with your kids. Life isn't perfect. No one should ever expect you to be perfect, but opening up that line of communication and just saying, look, I'm running low on sleep and I just feel like I'm hitting a wall this week. That will help your coach say, okay, let's take a step back. What do you feel like you need most at this time? What do you feel will make your routine more approachable at this time? And I think sometimes people don't realize that, yes, that's an option. That is absolutely an option with your coach. And if it isn't, I'll tell you right now, and you can take this to the bank, then you go find yourself a new coach. Because you're paying them to help you navigate a process that you may or may not have been in before, and you don't know what you don't know. I usually say, if a coach says, trust the process, for someone who is a seasoned competitor, they know exactly what that coach means. However, if this is someone that's new and they say, trust the process, right? We hear that a lot. Any forum you're on, pick a forum, any forum, you can hit them with a rock. Someone's going to say, trust the process. And that can be off-putting for somebody who has never done this before. And I say, if someone says, trust the process, and you don't know what that means, you can say, what does that mean? Can you break that down in a way so I can understand it better? Because your coach absolutely should break it down for you in a way that you can comprehend, because you don't know what you don't know, and it is a learning process. The next thing we're going to talk about with comfortable with the uncomfortable is a lot of times, a lot of people, and I'm sure Stephanie and Sarah can attest to this, have to learn that they have to eat up in order to come down. Because a lot of people come into this and they are absolutely underfueling their bodies for the amount of muscle they need to build. In order to get that deficit 12 to 16 weeks out, we need something to drop from. And if you're only eating 1,000 calories a day, where are we dropping to get you to the stage, right? Odds are your body's going to fight you the whole freaking way. And it's going to make it for just a really nasty, emotional train wreck experience, gliding all the way into those last couple weeks if you make it to the stage. The harsher the prep, the harder it is to get there. Whereas if you give yourself enough calories up and your body is burning and fueling and building on those calories, and we're coming up and we're coming up and coming up, and your coach can help you determine where that coasting place is. And you may feel like, oh my goodness, I've never eaten so much food in my life. But guess what? My body's responding because my inches are coming down and my photos are looking good and I'm building muscle. But sometimes we can't wrap our head around the fact that we have to come up to go down, because we told our whole lives that we have to come down, down, down to look good. And this comes to a very valid point, because we see this a lot. People often say, I'm 5 foot. How much do other people weigh at 5 foot to go on stage? And I will tell you right now, there is nobody asking you to step on a scale before you go in front of a judge. They don't care what you weigh. No one's going to ask you, and no one's going to want to hear it when you get backstage. What a judge is looking for is the total package. And I will say, for bikini, we are looking for that X frame. We are looking for shoulders, waist, glutes, hammy. But it should come like this. Now, this shape can be achieved at all heights and almost all weights. You don't have to be a $115 or a $120 on stage. If you naturally get to that, high five. However, I've seen people that weigh, they're 5 foot, 5'2", and they weigh 150, 160, and they may only go down 5 to 8 pounds during their entire prep. But those inches came in and they have got solid muscle and their package is tight and it is damn near perfect. So don't let the scale fool you. The scale is a tool. It is there to measure data. You want to know where your progress is? Let's talk about progress. Are you sleeping better? That's progress. Are you eating more nutritionally dense food? That's progress. Are you managing the stress that would normally make you flip your shit better? That's progress. Do you feel better mentally and emotionally? That's progress. Are you getting in more water? You're hitting your target goals. You're lifting heavier. You're going to the gym more consistently. You're eating more consistently. Your inches are coming down. Your photos are looking better. Your posing and your walk in your heels, ding, 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 are much improved. Those things are all markers of solid progress. The scale is irrelevant. I often give myself as an example. I am 5 foot nothing. And I currently come in at roughly, I think I weighed in this morning. It was my weigh-in day. I came in at like 170 and some change. If you saw me, you'd probably think I'd weigh probably, I don't know, 125, 130, because I'm a dense little package of muscle with a big, big, big personality where I lack in height. That's what coaches are looking for. They are looking for personality. They're looking for that X factor. They're looking for a certain amount of muscle mass in certain areas. If we're too thin, then we tend to look more flat. If we're dehydrated, we tend to look flat. Carbs are your friend. Protein is your friend. Healthy fats are your friend. When you're taking that stage in that photo package, you're meant to look glamorous. So we're bringing in the hair, the makeup, the body that you have your personal best, because it is you against you. Are you competing against other people? Absolutely. But if you don't like where you are, then how do you expect to carry that on stage to compete with others? So you should step on the stage feeling like a winner that day, because you absolutely are. You did something that was hard, mentally, physically, and emotionally, and you brought your best package to date. So you won that day just by getting there and getting on the stage. However, when we're judging people, I said, weight doesn't matter. And you could bring your best package, but it's almost like a bunch of local best athletes competing for like a spot on a college team. Everybody's the best from their school. However, now you're coming up against the best of the best. And as a judge, we're looking at a criteria that is subjective. And what I mean by subjective is, if you think a book is good and then I hand it to you and you hate that kind of book and I hand it to you and you're like, oh, that book was okay, that is subjective because it's based on opinion. There's a loose criteria. I'm looking at, what do I want to see when I look at a bikini competitor? Stephanie's going to look at it a different way, and Sarah's going to look at it a different way. You were going up against who showed up that day and the package they brought. So the more aware you are going into this, the more prepared you will be, the better off you'll be going in through the competition prep season, the better you will be when we start tapering down those weeks to get on stage, the better you will be mentally, emotionally, and physically coming off there, and the more likely you are to go long lengths of time in this sport. That's all I got. That was a lot, I know.
That's okay. That's okay. It's all great information. So is there anything that you'd like to add, Stephanie, to anything?
Not really. That was great. I guess another really important thing is like, don't compare yourself to others' journeys, because everybody has a completely different journey than one second. Sorry. Everybody always has a different journey than somebody else. And even though you're all going to compete on the stage or whatever it may be, just because one person is doing their prep a certain way and they're taking certain supplements, or they're on a certain amount of calories, do less cardio than you and stuff like that, doesn't mean that you have to do all that. Everybody is going to be treated differently, but they're all going to be treated, what it takes to get them stage lean. So just because somebody only has to do 15 minutes of cardio doesn't mean that you don't have to do an hour and a half. I mean, everybody's body responds differently. So, and just because somebody eats rice and fish every single day with a pile of green beans for their entire prep doesn't mean you have to either, So don't compare yourself to others. Just compare yourself to you. So if you have photos from back when and you're like looking down on yourself halfway through the process, which you will multiple times because it's all in here, your brain plays games with you. One day you're going to wake up thinking you're just hotter than shit. The next day you're going to wake up and you're going to feel like a beached whale, or you're going to think yourself as a beached whale. So your head plays mind games with you quite frequently, and it's completely normal. But always track your progress, because, you know, like we say, the scale is not, nobody cares about the weight. You know, we use the scale as a guideline. A lot of people get lost in the scale. So if that weight fluctuates up and down all the time, they freak out about it. Once again, it's another mental thing, but we use it as a guideline for a reason, because we can assess basically how much inflammation, how much water you're holding, you're bloated, whatever it is. And that's why the scale is continuously going up and down, up and down. Something is going on. That's what we do. Now, photos are everything. I thrive off of photos because you can tell the difference in everything, really, except for emotional state, right? So keep your photos. Whenever you're having a tough time, compare them. Compare from when you first started to 3 weeks, even if it's only 3 weeks down the road, because guaranteed you're going to have changes in 3 weeks. Might not be huge, but they're going to be there. So just don't compare yourself to others. Just stay on the straight road, put your blinders on, focus on you, remember where you started, remember why you started, keep your goals in sight.
Yes, I could not agree with that much more, because I think a lot of people tend to forget too that, because, you know, we are our own worst critic when it comes to ourselves, right? Because we see ourselves every day. We may not see changes from day to day, but like after several weeks, a month or two, you're going to see more changes. And so if you're only doing this for 1 or 2 weeks, yeah, your changes aren't going to be dramatic. That's not going to happen, you know? And our progress is not just a constant uphill or downhill thing, right? Our changes, because of hormones and everything else, we're going to be up, down, depending on sleep and water and hormones and everything else, and stress. Like all of those are big factors. But as a coach, if we can see that you're, you know, on the uphill, you know, on a constant good uphill or downhill, if we're building or cutting, then we can tell that you're making good progress within that time. You might have some up and down days or weeks, but overall, the pattern needs to be up or down, right? Or we need to maintain what we have. So don't be discouraged if the weight jumps a couple pounds because maybe you had a burger and fries the night before or something, because that does affect you, you know? So different things like that. That's why it's so important to have a coach, have kind of like a second pair of eyes. Because when you are trying to do this yourself, you are going to judge yourself so critically to the point where you might give up because you're going to be so judgmental of yourself in that process and trying to figure out, what else do I need to change? Do I change this? Do I change that? And chances are maybe you didn't need to change anything at all. And so having that second pair of eyes and a coach to kind of guide you through that process is going to help take a whole mental load off of you and stress in that whole process, because they are there to help make those changes with you and for you to help you get ready in the amount of time that you need. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed everything today. We definitely covered a lot. We could cover a lot more, which we will in the near future. But today, you know, remember training, that's very important to build, have a solid foundation, and then cut in that process. Eating whole foods as much as possible, tracking your food. If you haven't started, this is where I would start, just starting getting in the habit of being more mindful of what you're eating. And then of course, it's more of a mental game than anything else, regardless if you're building or cutting or, you know, whatever your goal is with competing. It's going to be a mental challenge. You're going to face a lot of different things that you may not have even thought about up until you start doing it. And so that's where coaches come in, and it's a great way to challenge yourself, you know, physically, but also emotionally and mentally as well. So the journey is not the same for every single person. Why you want to compete is not going to be the same as every single person. And that's okay. That's okay. Your journey is your journey at the end of the day. So if you guys would need any help from any of us, we are open. We do have free consultations that you can book with any one of us based on what you're looking for. Maybe you just need more of a timeline for how long it's going to be. Maybe you need more guidance and have an actual plan set in place. Maybe you need to work on your mindset a little bit more. Any of those things are going to help you tremendously in reaching your goal and not doing it alone, essentially, because you are not alone in this. We've heard it all. We've seen it all. As coaches, we're not new to this. So having that extra set of people in your corner really helps with that. So other than that, that's all we had for you today. And we look forward to talking to you here soon.